This is UWC on air. My name is Robin Adams. Absolutely delighted to have your company. We've got another jam-packed show on the cards for you. Here's what's coming up. Puff puff or pass. Vaping is in the spotlight, and we've got expert analysis on the dangers around e-cigarettes. Also ahead, turning the UWC Creative Masters course on its head, the story of the graduate who decided to produce a blues album for his thesis. The e-cigarette industry in South Africa is a very lucrative one. Experts are predicting that revenue will top 1.1 billion rand by 2024. Government, well, they want in on the action. They're proposing a raft of new taxes and laws. We've got all the viewpoints on this particular matter. The medical profession, looking at the health aspects. We've got the smokers themselves and their feelings around vaping and e-cigarettes. And we've got the tobacco industry.
The South African e-cigarette market is booming, helped of course by just how easy it has become to buy electronic vapor products online. And almost every week there's a new flavor. Chocolate, cola, watermelon ice, lychee raspberry, all the fruit mixes under the sun. You name it, people are smoking it. The total number of nicotine users in this country currently totals at 15 million, and the tobacco industry says that number is growing.
On all fronts, on both the heat not burn category and the e-cigarette category, it is growing. While majority of the consumption on tobacco is still on cigarettes, we are seeing fast growth year on year on both of the alternative smoke-free categories, which I believe is a good sign and a signal that South African smokers are looking for better alternatives than to continue smoking. So that is important and encouraging.
The e-cigarette users will be the first to tell you that theirs is a healthier and better smelling alternative to actual cigarettes. Doctors say this is nonsense.
E-cigarettes with or without nicotine are harmful. Studies are emerging that show the harmful effects on the lungs, blood vessels, immune system, and in the case of teenagers or young children, the brain is particularly susceptible to the harmful effects of nicotine. The airway irritation also triggers biological signals that lead to blood vessel damage, which in the long run leads to major cardiovascular disease.
But despite the health warnings, smokers tell us they don't see a problem with their continued use of e-cigarettes.
Vaping is much more accessible, it's easier, it's portable, it's much better than a hookah. Less let's say problems than a cigarette, to be honest. Because like cigarettes has a bad connotation. Vaping, there's not a lot of research, so I'm fairly fine and comfortable with vaping. So like I said, and there's a variety of flavors obviously, and it's just much better, to be honest. It's much better and cost effective, to be honest, as a student.
I've been smoking vape since relatively recent times because here on campus I'm not really much on want to smoke anymore because I feel like I have a very high smoke rate. I smoke a lot of cigarettes, for number one. So for me, being on campus, and it helps me bring my smoking down, as well as the friends I are around with, they smoke vape. So I actually started smoking vape more often. So what I noticed was that I started smoking less cigarettes, and I'm not too sure about the health issues all around.
Hookah or shisha pipes are another area of concern. Dr. Zainab Carter has done extensive research on the social aspect of hookah smoking and just what makes them so appealing. The new trend of vaping has really taken the world by storm, especially the youth. So can you tell me a bit about your research in regards to smoking, the hookah pipe as well as the vapes?
So my research has mainly focused on hookah pipe smoking. So my PhD topic focused on hookah pipe smoking, specifically of adolescents. And what I've found is as time has moved on, or younger children are now less likely to smoke the hookah pipe and more likely to smoke the vape. It doesn't mean that people are not smoking the hookah pipe, it's just that the vape has become more popular, especially amongst adolescents. So we note that they have very nice sleek designs, you can buy them more accessibly, and also they are much smaller to use, so they fit in your pocket, they look like an eraser or highlighter or pen. So children think, or children might find that it's easier to use at school, even in the home while parents are present, because there would be less smoke that comes out, and the scent wouldn't be like cigarette smoke. It would be more flavoursome, like a fruity flavour or something. So the vape, even though the amount of nicotine might be seen as less, there's still nicotine in there, which makes it a risk factor. Then also, if you buy a vape, and let's say I buy cherry flavour and you buy cola, you know, I might want to smoke of your flavour, you might want to smoke of my flavour. And so we would share our vape. And so if you have a cold, for example, if you have COVID, or if you have mouth sore, whatever, that can be transferred between person to person. The same like with an oka pipe, where the hose is shared from person to person in a group. So oka pipe usually is a few friends that are smoking. You'd sit in a circle, you'd pass it around from person to person. You'd usually smoke for about 45 minutes to an hour. You can do it at a restaurant. So as you can hear, you know, there's multiple role players, I suppose, involved in this thing, whereas vape you can just kind of do on your own. So my intervention found, so I looked at why adolescents are smoking, I looked at what exists, and then I also looked at what type of intervention adolescents would like. So we've realized that there needs to be a therapeutic element, because a lot of people that, or a lot of adolescents that has family issues, or if there's trauma, or if there's abuse in the house, then they tend to want to move away from that, and they go to a peer group, and at the peer's house usually there's an oka pipe, and so they would smoke. So we looked at intervention from a family level or parent level, and then also at an individual level. We looked at involving social media and also schools and broader scale, basically, so that we can create awareness. And then we also looked at how is it that we can kind of get everybody involved. So if, for example, so the child is smoking on the street corner, the aunt that walks past would be able to say, hey, that's not the right thing to do. The parent would know that it's not a safer alternative to smoking. The teacher would also educate them within life orientation, hopefully. And so there are many facets that one would need to consider when smoking the oka pipe. Vape is a bit different, but it would also help if it is also a multifaceted approach, because parents generally don't know what is in the vape. You know, they see this very sleek design and they think it's okay, you know, it's less nicotine content, it's okay to smoke it, it's just flavor, but it's not just flavor. So lots of education needed, lots of counseling and therapeutic work that needs to happen, in addition to all the awareness raising that we do.
Studies show vaping and hookah pipes encourage long-term nicotine dependency. And there is also evidence that this can act as a gateway to smoking for young people who have never smoked before. But for young people like Nicholas Crisp and Herschel Feelies, it's a habit they are not going to kick anytime soon. Zanaldeville, UWC on Air, Cape Town.
It's time for a quick break. When we return, a focus on music, and more specifically on the blues, and how it earned one student a master's degree at UWC. South African singer and songwriter John Ellis had long dreamed of furthering his studies. After years of living and performing abroad in the United States, he returned home to pursue a master's in creative writing. He took a very different approach to the course here at UWC. He produced a blues album. Jesse Townsend spoke to him.
So John, you've done your master's in creative writing, but you've taken a different approach.
Yes.
Tell us more about that.
Creative writing usually is about what it says in the box, creative writing in terms of literature or prose. I was challenged to do an album of music, which is not a usual approach for creative writing students of literature. But I have a literature background, and the idea of mixing literature and music was an interesting approach. Professor Duncan Brown, who was the Dean of the Faculty of Humanities at the time, suggested that I do another album of music. I hadn't done recorded music for many years. I'd kind of retired from music and to focus on other things. And I was going to do some poetry with Professor Brown. And then he suggested we looked at some music as a way of presenting whatever I wrote. And he specifically suggested that I went down the road of blues music, which was a pretty unique suggestion because blues is not endemic to South Africa in terms of its musical genesis. But also, I'm very conscious I'm a white South African, and blues is specifically an African American form of expression. Approaching blues from the perspective of a white South African is quite interesting because it's not natural to my cultural background. And yet, I'm a white South African living in Africa. And I love the idea of presenting African American music from a white perspective in modern South Africa using South African musicians. I love to juxtapose those ideas and came up with something really special.
You've done some music videos on your music. You know, just take us from the beginning stages to the end. What's involved? What does it take?
Okay. This album took quite a long time to write because I had to spend some time thinking about the literature part of it, the creative writing section of it. But when it came to recording, I had to get quite a few musicians in one space at one time and try to pull off a recording over a limited amount of time. And musicians generally are not very good at admin. But I had to do a lot of admin in terms of coordinating recording schedules and musicians of different cultures. I had some Zulu musicians, some classical Indian musicians. I went to Pretoria and did some recording with some Afrikaans guys. I wasn't able, because of COVID, to get to the Cape to record some traditional Kaapse Klopse stuff, which I'd love to have done. So COVID was a bit of a factor. But once we got the ball rolling, the recording went quite smoothly. And everything was recorded live, so actually the recording time wasn't very long. It was only a few days really on a calendar. When it came to do the videos, it was very quick because I wanted this very rough and ready approach, this DIY approach to recording rather than spending months and months trying to do something very slick. Blues music is very organic and natural. I wanted that to reflect on this particular album.
You've done your masters, you've done your album. What's next?
I really enjoy academia, and I would like to continue my studies and go into a PhD with some more literature stuff. Music is on the side, and I will continue making music and writing and performing. So those two avenues, we'll see where we go in the next few years.
So I've got one more question.
Okay.
Kind of a challenge. You have to answer in song.
Song?
Yeah. So if if you had to come up with a song that would earn you your PhD,
wow,
what would it sound like?
I really want a PhD. What's it gonna take to earn me a degree with as minimal amount of work as possible? A minimum amount of reading and writing and typing, and I hope this is enough.
Thank you, Dr. Ellis.
2023 is going to be a big one for sport. There are plenty of World Cups to look forward to, including the big one, the Netball World Cup, which will be staged here in Cape Town. And with all these major sporting events on the horizon, it means our athletes will be putting in their very best performances in the hopes of a national team place. Here's UWC Sports Director Mandla Gagai looking ahead to a very busy 12 months of sport.
Sure, it doesn't always happen that you have 4 World Cups in 1 year. So I think it's going to be a bumper year. And what is more attractive, especially for us in the Western Cape, is the fact that the Netball World Cup will be here in the Western Cape, in Cape Town. And also for aspiring young people out there, I think all those 4 events come with great opportunities, because now one needs to challenge him or herself to play and perform at the highest level so that they can stand a chance to be selected to play in those teams. Or if one doesn't play in those teams, there's also opportunity for one to get involved as a volunteer so that whatever legacy remains, a person can look back and say, I was part of that dream, I was part of that history. Like it happened in 2010 Most of us worked there. We still cherish memories that came with 2010. So it should be the same this year, but in a bigger scale. You know, the history of this university is the university that always fights for the underdog. So if you look at the history of this country, women were always pushed to the sidelines, whether it's in sport or it's in corporate or even in social activities. So we took a conscious decision to say, let us now tip the scales, let us level the playing field. And by that we said we're going to invest a bit more in sport for women without really taking away from men. Because remember, two wrongs do not make a right. So, but we invested more in women's sport, and the results have been visible for everyone to see. If you look at the recent AFCON in Morocco, 50% of that team are people that came from UWC. You had 6 alumni and 5 current students of UWC. That speaks to what we are trying to do when we say we want to push investment towards sport for women. Now, we have a female coach, Lynn Abramse, that just came back from Commonwealth. She was managing hockey. So when we invest in women, we don't invest for the sake of saying it. We invest because we can already see the results. And we invest to challenge other universities and other clubs out there to say, look at what women can do when you really do what is right. Not politically, but do what is right as a human being.
A group of UWC staffers achieved a remarkable feat. They completed their matric certificates. For some, like Damara Kivitz, the journey was nearly 4 decades in the making. And just like a real princess, she even donned a crown at the presentation ceremony. Kivitz has these pearls of wisdom for the thousands of matriculants currently sitting down for their final exams.
My encouragement will be to them is you can do it. Put your heart and mind to your studies. During your exams, there's no time to play. The playtime is study time. And so in you committing to your studies, the higher powers will reward you for what you've put in. I've learned over the 2 years that commitment and dedication to make sure I achieve my goal I set out for me, that I will have a matric certificate.
We have a sizable family of alumni scattered all across the world. This show is obviously a great way to keep them updated on all things UWs. It is also the perfect platform for them to share their stories, their experiences, their memories of their time at UWC. Our next insert, Them and Now, maps our former students' journeys from this campus to their present day situations.
I'm Genevieve Lens, and I was born and bred in Pontyville. I attended Arcadia Primary School, and this is my high school. I attended here from 95 to 98. And from high school, I went on to UWC. Well, I took a gap year in 99 because I didn't really have the funding to go to university. So there wasn't really funds. I come from a single parent home. So it was quite tough. I took the gap year, and my grandmother, she then comes to me and says, no, you're wasting your time. I want you to go to university. I don't have money to send you to university, but I'm happy to walk with you to the university to do the administration, and we can see how we can get funding. Arcadia was very significant in me becoming and believing in myself. I was always top 3 of my class and I worked very hard. And also because I knew my mom and my grandparents, they kind of drilled it into us that education was like going to be your freedom and how you were going to get out of your circumstances. Yeah, I started my journey at UWC then in 2000. Got accepted for linguistics, BA linguistics, and that's what that was my undergrad degree. I enjoyed my time there, felt like this is where I belonged. I even participated in the table tennis team because I started playing for the club, the UWC club, and we actually won, the girls team won gold, I remember, one year. So that's kind of like a highlight. I finished my undergrad degree and then I went on to do my honours in English. And while I was doing my honours degree in English, another fellow table tennis player, she called me up and she said, look, we have this vacancy at Castlesplay. They're looking for a teacher for 3 months. And I'm like, I'm not a teacher. I'm not going to teach. I don't have the experience and I never studied education. How do I just go and teach? She's like, no, but you got English. You're studying English, so you just need that. I was literally like 5 years older than the kids that I was teaching. But the teachers at the school came on board. They kind of helped me along. But I did say that education was not for me. I was not going to do it. Then I finished my honours degree. But at that time also, I got an opportunity to go and teach at a school in Alces River, St. Andrews. I went to St. Andrews. I was there for about 15 years, which I never thought I was going to be. And I enjoyed, I ultimately realized that education it's what I do, you know, that I have the gift for it, I have the knack for it. But other than that, I'm very much involved in table tennis, international referee. I was privileged enough to be at the Beijing Olympics and the London Olympics, and then last year was the Tokyo Olympics, and also qualified as the first international referee on the African continent. About 2 years ago, my siblings and I, we had a conversation at home about where we are today in our lives. And yes, we came from a single parent home, but because of the environment that we grew up in, the violence, the gangsterism, and the fact that our teachers and our parents and the community, or well, our closest community, kind of imprinted that we needed education to uplift ourselves, we realized that could we not have been there sooner than where we are today? And we realized there's actually a gap. There's a gap in terms of making informed decision when it comes to your career. Could we not do something? Could we not come back to Bonteheuwel? Could we, well, we grew up here and we know the people. How can we give back in our capacity? That small conversation between siblings became a greater conversation amongst friends. So Dream to Aspire was established in 2021, and our main focus would be life skills, career guidance and entrepreneurship. We believe that yes, you can have a career, but you can also, because they are so talented, they could easily just go into entrepreneurship. So we want to create those opportunities and provide them with skills and knowledge to be able to make the right informed decisions in terms of careers, but also go on and become entrepreneurs. We came back to Arcadia and we decided that we're going to start at Arcadia, and we selected 14 mentees out of 100 students. We asked them to write an essay why they wanted to belong to this program. We obviously explained to them what the program offers, and 14 of them, we were very inspired to work with these 14. So these 14, we'd walk a journey with them until they get to matric, and then we try and get them into higher education. Like I said, providing them with essential skills and tools to make the right choices in terms of their careers.
And here's a sneak peek of what's coming up in next week's show. A former Springbok rugby star scrums down for a different team. Deputy Mayor of Cape Town, Eddie Andrews, tells us all about his journey from professional sport to politics and balancing his studies at UWC with family life. And it's World Prematurity Day, a focus on those who arrived in this world earlier than expected. And that'll do it for this edition of UWC On Air. Really appreciate your time and your company. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Can you tell us a bit about...
No, your research resulted in...
Yeah.
More specifically, on the blues and how it earned one master's student, one student.
Creative writing usually says...
We have a sizable family of family.
The academic.
One more question, and it's actually a bit of a challenge. Okay, 2023 is going to be a big one for school. Somebody calling you.
But